Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Rachel and I make videos relating to sewing and a small amount of knitting and crochet, mainly English paper piecing and hand applique videos. So if that's the type of content that you enjoy watching, don't forget to check out my other videos. Now in today's video I'm going to show you the start of an English paper piecing project. I'm going to show you a picture of the inspiration project that inspired me. I was just scrolling through Instagram and I saw this. So this is what I've decided to recreate, and I'm going to talk you through step by step the process. If you would like to see how far I get on this project and a little update, do stay tuned to the end of the video because I'm going to share with you how far I've got with a couple of days worth of stitching. Maybe I'll get to the weekend and I'll show you how much I've done and add it to the end of this video. So I hope you enjoy. Now, generally I like my English paper piecing projects to be of a more scrappy nature because I find that's in my mind how paper piecing started, with small scraps of fabric, and it just allows you to use up tiny pieces that you wouldn't necessarily be able to if you was machine piecing. Not that I'm very accurate with machine piecing, and that's why I like the hand sewn, because I find I can be a lot more accurate. So the first thing that I do when starting a project is I always kind of have in my mind what type of scraps I've got. And when I purchase my scraps, I try and keep them together, either in, if it's a scrap of one whole line of fabric, I keep those together, or if it's just random scraps that I purchase or that I collect from my own projects, I keep them colour coded or with like for like fabrics. So that helps me know what I've got on a go sort of thing. But this project that I had in mind, I wanted to use up some of the small scraps that I have. I've still got them. So when I went to the Festival of Quilts last year, I bought lots of small scraps of fabric. And what they do there is they sell them in bundles. I'll show you. So they're called snippets. This was from, I think, the Cotton Patch. I think that was who was selling them. And you do get quite a lot in here. Ooh. So you get all of those for £2.50, and there's quite a bit. These are just the ones that I bought, and when I'm looking at buying these, I try and buy the ones with the widest width of fabric. But as you can see, they're all coordinating and of the same line. And I've also got these, you can't quite see them, but they're reds and blues in there. So I knew that I wanted to use these because in my mind I'm thinking I really want to go to the Festival of Quilts and I really hope I've got these again. But I was thinking, why am I buying more when I've still got these? So I needed to use them up before this year. So what I generally do is when I'm looking for inspiration of a project, I will take to Pinterest, Instagram, and I just screenshot or save them on my phone so I can go back to them at a later date. And what I liked about this project is it's not all small pieces. It's made up of larger pieces as well, which is, I think it's octagons. So it's almost like small pieces but large as well, so you're not doing as much small piecing because it doesn't grow very fast, does it? But I liked it because I could use the small pieces with those tiny snippets that I've got. So that was my inspiration. So I took to my fabric drawer and I was thinking, what shall I use? The first fabric, I wanted something similar to what was in the photo. And I bought these bundles, and they just I really loved those. I just liked all the bright, vibrant colours. I thought it'd look brilliant with maybe the white octagons. But in my mind, I thought these are big pieces. I can use these on a project where it's bigger pieces. So I decided against those. So I knew that it was down to my small snippets. And the one that I've chose to use is this fabric. It's a Jane Austen collection. I won't be able to use it all because some of the pieces are too small. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the process of what I do to start a project. So from the templates to basting them to cutting the fabric if necessary, and how far I actually go with basting all of the shapes, because I'm not going to baste all of this fabric. Now I don't think this is going to make a quilt. I don't know how far I'll get, but what I intend to do is just use what I've got here. If I end up wanting to make it into a quilt, this isn't a discontinued line, I'll be able to get some fat quarters, maybe from the cotton patch, which is where I got this from. So the first thing that I do then is I look through the fabric that I've got. So here I have got a section that's grouped together of smaller pieces, and I kind of think that not all of those are going to work, but I won't discard them. They might be useful for something else. And then I'm just looking through the fabric that I have got, and they are quite long pieces. What these are from, I don't know if it might have been the cotton patch, but I think they put together fabric bundles or kits, and these are the offcuts. A lot of them are the salvage edge, so that one there has got a lot of the holes on, so that's not going to be useful. But for example, this wider piece, that's going to be useful, and then all of these I'll be able to use. It doesn't matter if some of my seam allowance, which I fold over, is that salvage edge, because it will be hidden, so I can use the vast majority of these. And what I start by doing is gathering my paper templates, and I downloaded these from EPP Addict on Etsy. They were quite inexpensive, and I actually messaged her to try and get some paper pieces that met this quilt pattern, because I couldn't find where to get the paper pieces. So she very kindly made this bundle of paper pieces for me. So what I start by doing is I print it onto my own cardstock, and I just start cutting them out. Some shapes you can get away with cutting out with a craft knife and a ruler, because they sort of tessellate and they've got a clear line for you to cut, whereas others, like these kite shapes, you need to cut with a pair of scissors or a cutting machine. I should have said that this kite shape, it's a 45 and a 90-degree kite. I'll link the kit to where you can get these paper pieces on Etsy, so you can purchase them yourself. So we'll just start by cutting a bunch of those out. Now I'm not going to cut out a lot of the octagons, because I'm going to focus on the smaller piecing first of all. I'm going to do a bunch of the kite shapes, get all of those sewn together. Now once I've prepared all of my paper pieces, I don't like to baste everything at once. I just like to split the task and do some basting, cutting of the shapes, and then also the sewing, because I feel it divides the project. What I do then is I get together a tray of supplies which I'll need for the project. Now on this tray it will be things like my glue, scissors, needles. In this instance I'm going to do paper clips, because on the inspiration picture there's 4 sets of paper pieces, 2 of them are matching, so I need to keep those together. Things like those little clips, I can't remember what they're called, wonder clips, I'll keep those on my tray, and I just keep that with me. Everything there is then ready for when I want a new paper piece, and I can just pick it up, go. If I've got 10-15 minutes I can do a few pieces in that time, hopefully. It doesn't always work out that way, does it? And we don't always get hours and hours like we want to sit down and do this, unfortunately. So like I said, I don't baste all of these shapes from a project at the very start. I like to mix it up and do some basting and then some sewing. But here I'm just going to show you how I glue baste one set of the shapes. So we do use either Sew Line glue or Alma's school glue, because you can get quite small glue sticks for that. And I just put a dab on the reverse of the template and just stick it down, and I just very roughly cut out maybe a 1/4 inch seam allowance, a bit slightly more, but whatever you're comfortable with sticking down. And also when you're using small pieces like this, the seam allowance really depends on how much fabric you've got to play with. But the smaller your seam allowance, it can be difficult once you take the papers out. You can get some fraying, so always go with a larger seam allowance where you can. And all I do is just put a very thin line of the sew-line glue. If you live in a hot country, the sew-line glue tends to be a little bit sticky. Sometimes I do notice that when it's warm in the UK. So I have heard hacks that you can store it in the fridge, and that means you don't waste as much, it doesn't come out as quickly. So I'm just choosing 2 slightly contrasting fabrics here from this range. Just a dab of glue on the back, and I do, if I wasn't doing this for the video, I would have basted that whole line of fabric, but just for the purpose of the video. I do apologise that I'm very slightly out of frame. This is the first tutorial style video that I'm filming for doing my sewing, so I am sorry about that. When you're doing shapes that have like those dog ears at the bottom, I think they're called, or tails, you need to make sure that you always baste the shape in the same direction. So always baste clockwise around the shape or anti-clockwise, but make sure you're consistent, because then it means that those little tag bits at the end will nest together really nicely. Now when I'm sewing, I just use a very thin polyester thread that I use for my machine embroidery. I do like to use a Wonder clip to hold the pieces together, just because this will then reduce any strain on your hand gripping it together. And I just do a very small whip stitch, just gripping a few strands of the fabric either side and knotting every corner. I think it's called the knicker knot that I use, and I just trim the threads down, and there we have it. The first pieces are sewn together. What I do is, once I've gathered the supplies, I just start stitching away. I will keep everything on the tray, whether it's unbasted shapes, basted shapes, sewn shapes, unsewn shapes, everything will be together. There'll be a few containers and everything is contained on the tray. I do keep meaning to make like a bottom or something decorative for the bottom of the tray, but I haven't yet got around to that. So yeah, that's how I start the project. It's just sort of, I look through the fabric, I look through my inspiration, see what I've got and just start. I think I've said before that I don't always buy enough materials, whether it's yarn or fabric material. I don't always buy enough to complete the project, because I know what I'm like and I might have things on the go for ages, and some things I might just not finish. I might just make this into a table runner or a centerpiece for the table, or I might really enjoy doing it and want to continue. But what I don't want to do is abandon it halfway through and have bought, you know, £100 worth of fabric, when in reality I can just spend £2.50 on one of these bags and make small projects. So I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this process that I go through. I will now insert a clip, future me, of what I've managed to get done within a couple of days, just so you can get an idea. Maybe this is inspiration for you and you want to join along. So it's been around 4 days now, and here is my progress on this little panel that I've been doing. So I've took out the papers on the white centerpieces. I am a little bit concerned that you can see the seam allowance on the white. I don't know if that's showing up on the video, but when it's against the white of this tablecloth underneath, it's not showing too bad. So I think by the time I've got the batting, you know, it should blend quite nicely, at least I hope. And here's the back. The papers are purple just because I printed them myself at home, purchased them off Etsy, as you know. There we go. I'll just give you a close-up. So you can see some of the stitching, but I find that the stitching sort of dissolves once you start taking the papers out. So if you are concerned about any visible stitching, So for example, on that red one there, you can see the stitching, but it's purely just the colours. On the one next to it, you can't see it as much. Maybe a little bit on this one. But once those papers come out and once the project's quilted, it will all just dissolve. Now, I don't know how big this project is going to get. I'll probably just keep going till I actually run out of fabric and maybe turn it into a bed runner, or I don't know, we'll see. Stay tuned to see how far the progress on this actually goes. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and that it inspires you to take up a project using these shapes. Bye!